Several of those folks in the audience here today. Rented a villa in the hills south of Siena, Tuscany, and it looked a bit like this one. And there we drank in the gorgeous scenery, and we visited mountaintop villages, and we engaged in one of Jim's favorite pastimes. We ate and we drank. One afternoon we visited a remote restaurant that Larry Massey, who was our food and drink guru, had targeted. We sat together in a beautiful dining room and watched our pasta being handmade by an old woman, and then sampled some sublime dishes and drank heavenly wines. That afternoon we learned some important lessons about life, I thought, and these are taught to us, I think, in several interesting films about food and about eating. One of the lessons is that cooking can be as fine an art as any other, and that the appreciation of that art, especially when you're enjoying it with other people, can do as much to enlarge one's soul as listening to Mozart or gazing at a Rembrandt. And that afternoon in Tuscany, we were in the hands of artists. And after the dolce and the grappa and the coffee, we all sat on the terrace outside the restaurant, basking in the sun, looking out over the beautiful Tuscan landscape with full bellies and full hearts. And someone there captured that moment in a photograph. We took several more wonderful Enchanted April trips after that. We went to Provence and to the California wine country and to the Basque country of Spain. But that afternoon in Tuscany with Jim was a golden moment, and one that I'll always remember and treasure. Bob Willerton has known Jim the longest of any of us up here at the podium, since they were students and fraternity brothers together at the University of Illinois in the early 1950s. He's going to share some of his recollections of Jim. Bob?
When Betty called to tell Sue and me that Jim had passed away, we immediately had to inform the rest of our family, because the whole family knew Jim and knew him well. We had done a lot of things with the Davises from back before Jim and Betty were married. We went to their children's weddings, they came to our children's weddings, we did some vacationing together and all this sort of thing. So Jim wasn't just someone to my children and someone the old man knew back when, you know. He was a friend of the family. And so we told the family that Jim had passed away, which was not unexpected, but of course you're never really ready for it. One son-in-law replied to me with an email, which I'd like to share with you. I think it kind of sums up the day, in my view. Sorry to hear about Jim's passing. 60-plus year friends are rare to find. So while it makes the loss tougher, it also makes the treasure chest of memories that much bigger and better. Enjoy those memories. Laugh out loud with the ones that make your wives wonder what you never told them. My comments will be a little bit different from my predecessors. We knew Jim probably before any of you did. Jim and I first met in a rather unusual set of circumstances. We were both from small towns, Effingham being not much more than an overgrown farm town, and I'm from a place that's only a wide spot in the road. So we came to the university with big ideas about entering into collegiate life and becoming educated and all that good stuff. But of course, we didn't know each other at all prior to that. Did Jim ever tell you that in preparing for college he memorized the words to all the Big Ten fight songs? There were 9 of them at the time. I don't think Michigan State had yet joined the mix, but he claimed he memorized all those. I never heard him sing them, which is kind of a fortunate thing. Harking back to his musical abilities, which were about as limited as mine, our song leader of Vacation Fraternity would sometimes say to Jim, myself, and 3 or 4 others, don't sing too loud, hold it down. He never got right down to telling us to just mouth the words, but came close. And we understood the situation, so we didn't push it. But Jim also decided that he should join a fraternity, and I did likewise. And the Greek system, the fraternities and sororities in those days, was alive and well. And so we went through that structured thing of formal rushing with all the rules and regulations, and where in about an hour and a half each of about 3 or 4 days you attempt to find the people you want to live with for 4 years. And the fraternities, on the other hand, do the same thing, trying to sort out those that they're interested in and so forth. Every fraternity had a system whereby, to attempt to smooth out this process, they would take those folks in whom they had very little interest and get them off somewhere where they could concentrate on the ones that they did have interest in. At Acacia, this was a matter of sending these folks up to the 3rd floor to listen to classical music with Brother Bob Snow. At Theta Chi fraternity, those who were considered in the reject category were sent to the basement to play ping pong. And that's where I met Jim. He and I were Theta Chi rejects playing ping pong in the basement of Theta Chi. And I remember looking at him and thinking to myself, yeah, I can see why they reject him. And he's looking at me with thoughts something akin to, I wonder how this clown fell off the pumpkin truck. And we are very impressed with the other. But we went on our way, and we eventually both pledged Acacia, and of course unknown to each other. And when I moved into Acacia later in that fall, I was told you'll be quartered in a 3-man room, you'll never be inactive, and 2 pledges, you'll be one of the pledges. So Bill Schroeder, the active, took me to my room and said, okay, here's the other pledge you're going to be living with, and would you believe it was the ping pong reject from Theta Chi. And I looked at him and I thought, oh boy. And he looked at me and thought, what did I do to deserve this? And that was the beginning. That was when we first really knew each other. And somehow from that beginning, we became very good friends and stayed that way for 60-some years. I'd like to share just a couple of memories from our days in the fraternity. Not of the serious nature that you folks brought up, no more on the fun side of things. Jim was a fun guy. He really was. He had a fun side of his personality. You mentioned this. I enjoyed him. I enjoyed him a lot. And we had a lot of fun doing things together. Some of the things we did required maybe more idiocy than sense. There was a time in the fraternity, there was a rule you didn't room the same people all the time. So ever since we rotated in with different people. Sometimes I room with Jim, sometimes not. Well, one particular tale comes to mind. This semester, it was a spring semester, we were not rooming together, but we were in rooms next door to each other. Sandy and I were one down Hayes and the next one down the hall. This is on the 2nd floor of the back side of the Acacia, which is now known as Center for Library Sciences and Such. On the 2nd floor, we looked out across kind of an alley parking area, and beyond that was a large house inhabited by a lady, or rather a nice old lady that we didn't quite see eye to eye with all the time. The lady had a cat, a very, very large cat. And in each evening, she would bring the cat out on a leash and sit with the clothesline, doing whatever it is that cats do. And here we are, with our windows open in the springtime. This cat would begin to yowl when it became bored with whatever it is she was doing out there. And he was loud. I mean, really loud. Very large cat. Very great set of vocal cords, and he was loud. And this annoyed us. Here we are trying to advance our brains and learn things and become educated, and this cat is annoying us. So, among the 4 of us, Sam, Jim, Don, and myself, someone decided, let's kidnap that cat. Catnap the cat. I guess would be more proper. That had been Jim's idea, I'm not sure. He had ideas like this from time to time. For the sake of the story, let's say it was Jim's idea. So the plan was to back Sam's car up to near where the cat was in the trunk. And one of us would get the cat detached from the clothesline and walk him over to the trunk and convince the cat to get in the trunk and have him disappear into the darkness with him. Well, as the cat moved over toward the car, he began to suspect there was something wrong with his program. And he began going around whoever it was that had the leash. And he began doing this faster and faster, so it was practically airborne. At which time the leash holder managed to get the cat into the trunk. Sam slammed the lid. We all hopped in the car and took off, very proud of our activity. We go about toward Danville, I think, miles out into the country. Stopped the car, opened his trunk, somehow got the leash off the cat. I don't recall how we managed to do that. And the cat disappeared into the darkness. And we thought, what a proud thing we've done here. We've allowed this cat to have unlimited fresh air and sunshine. And we went back to the fraternity feeling pretty good about the whole thing. We'd gotten rid of this annoyance. The lady next door discovered her cat was missing and suspected that the lads over at 501 East End might have had something to do with it. And she went to the police. Policemen showed up on our door and went about questioning people about the missing cat. You could hear denials all down the hall. Well, no, I don't know anything about a cat. A cat is missing. I don't know anything about that. Well, finally, the policeman decided he had more serious matters to deal with out in North Champaign than he did looking for a cat. And so he disappeared, and that's the last we heard of it. And I don't know if it's karma or destiny or what it might be, but in the Davis household in later years, there were frequently cats. And I'm wondering, was it the ghost of this cat? Sue and I stayed with the Davises from time to time, and there would be a cat involved there, sometimes two. I remember one little girl by the name of Raquel, I believe, that went wandering by. Raquel spent more time eating than she did doing any exercise. And Jim used to talk about a cat named Fred. And I don't think I ever saw Fred, but Jim said Fred loved to ride the car, liked to get up on the dash, kind of tucked in there where the windshield meets the dash, and liked to ride there. But riding, unfortunately, upset Fred's digestive system. And it caused him to pass gas, large amounts of gas, which must have made for wonderful riding. And Jim referred to this old boy as Fred the Farting Feline. I told him that story quite a number of times. We saw in that slideshow downstairs, you saw Jim in the uniform with the quartermaster symbols up here prior to going out to lead troops and so forth. Jim and I were in the ROTC program in the same unit, and we were sent off to summer camp at Fort Lee, Virginia, to do this basic training thing between our junior and senior years. Neither of us had a car, and there was some question about how we were going to get there. But Jim's good friend, Dr. Henry from Effingham, somehow came up with this car, and it was